Okay. Hello and welcome everyone to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. We do 2 a month. The Three Principles Global Community, or also known as 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the 3 principles to people throughout the world. Today is our first 3PGC webinar on Zoom. I will be uploading this to YouTube, so for any of you watching on YouTube, you'll know why it wasn't on Google Hangouts, and hopefully next time you can join us. And you can, if you're not getting the announcements for 3PGC, you can join as a member at 3pgc.org. You use the number 3, and the Zoom information will be on announcement before the next webinar. So today I am so delighted that we have Kathy Casey with us. Kathy Casey, BSW, MA, Clinical Psychology, and International Training Consultant. Catherine has been conducting 3 Principles programs to a wide range of people in many different environments throughout the world for the past 20 years. Catherine has implemented a principles-based resiliency program in Santa Clara Valley Medical Center, San Jose, California, one of the largest public hospitals in the United States. Recently, she's been conducting trainings in Finland, Norway, and Russia. Persons wanting to advance their consulting, coaching careers also seek her out for her mentoring services. Many of the environments that Catherine has provided her consulting services include Fortune 500 corporations, such as Dow Chemical, BAE Defense Systems, Clorox, and Boston Scientific. Medical centers, state and county government organizations, adult and juvenile criminal systems, including San Quentin Prison, law enforcement, educational institutions, elementary through college, psychiatric residential facilities, and addiction treatment centers.
Yeah, I'm getting tired. No wonder I feel so old.
Catherine's passion is to reignite the resiliency and wisdom in all persons in any environment through the understanding of the 3 principles. She currently lives in San Jose, California. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to mute myself as well so there's no static in the background, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Bonnie. Yeah, hearing that read out loud is, yeah, I'm getting very tired now. I think I'm going to take to my bed. No, actually, it's really, hearing that helps me appreciate the topic that I'm presenting, because basically, you know, my topic is we can teach the principles to any person in any environment, in any context. And that's why I think in my early years, when I was learning, you know, just starting to learn how to share the principles, and it was what I would call baptism by fire, meaning nobody really taught me how to do it. I just heard the principles one week, and then the following week I was in an internship, sitting with my clients, telling them, well, here's the deal. Everything we've done up till now is going out the window, and I'd like to just share something new. And that's where I started. It literally, and when I said share something new, it was just what little I saw when I first heard the principles. But it's amazing with what little I saw, it had huge implications for me, meaning all of the training I'd had up until then, which I was starting to realize just within myself, just in general, didn't make sense to me because it focused on what was wrong with people. And so I was getting very discouraged. So all of a sudden, hearing the principles, I got re-inspired to, wow, this is the way to work with people. So that's how I started. Just, you know, kind of in the unknown, just doing the best I could to share, again, what little I learned. But here's what I've realized over the years, having really taught the principles in so many different environments, which you just heard, is that the first thing I had to appreciate when I first heard the principles was that the fact that I was a thinking being. Now, I know that sounds pretty simple, like duh, but actually most people don't really get that. I certainly didn't, meaning I'm learning psychology. I've been out in the world working with people. I was a manager, I was a counselor, I was this, I was that, but never really appreciating that I was literally a thinking being and that was creating my life. And that, which is such a simple, simple fact, is so hugely profound. So for me, I woke up to that fact. And I'm so grateful that I was awake enough to hear it. Okay. Now, as I started continuing working with people, I saw the same thing for them. They're living in this world of thought, unbeknownst to them. So as I appreciated how much I didn't know that, I now can look around and see other people and think, well, they don't know it either. So it was almost, it was like so obvious to me, but yet so invisible up until, I was 45 years old, and it's so invisible to most people. We have moments where we experience it. So we've all experienced the intangible, the invisible, through insights and spiritual experiences or whatever you want to call those. So we've all had those experiences, but we don't really see that's kind of going on all the time. See, we don't really appreciate or realize the fact of this energy that we're connected to is coming through us, and that's what's creating our life. I mean, we are literally thinking our way through life. And so then I got to hear Sydney Banks, which I didn't even know about him. The first year I was teaching, nobody told me about him, if you can imagine that. And one day somebody said, oh yes, Sydney Banks will be speaking in Hawaii. And my colleague and I, we looked at each other and we're like, well, who the heck is he? And then I got a little nervous thinking, oh, they have some weird guy they're pulling out of the closet, some weird guru guy, because I was very adamant at that point in my life. I've gone through all different kinds of experiences looking for the answer, especially in the whole New Age area. And one day I woke up and said, that's it, I'm done with all that stuff. So then I'm thinking, oh, this is another one of those. So I did get to go out to Hawaii and hear him speak for the first time. Very skeptical, like who is this guy? And so as I listened to him, I thought, well, yeah, he's teaching what I'm teaching. Can you imagine? This is what I'm thinking. Well, he's teaching what I'm teaching. And as he spoke more, I realized, oh, he's the real deal. This guy is pretty down to earth. In fact, there was a woman in the audience. I love telling the story because I'm sitting there like, okay, well, this sounds all right. He seems okay. Scottish accent and all. And this woman raises her hand and she goes on and asks Sid about this friend who has this illness. And, she went on and on about the illness. And then finally she said, so Sid, what should I tell her to do? So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, here it comes. Here comes the woo-woo stuff, And he didn't respond right away. So, and the room was so quiet. And I'm like, oh God, what did I get myself into? This is horrible. My credibility is going to go out. I mean, this is what's flooding through my mind. Well, all of a sudden he says to her, well, I think she should go see a doctor. And I was so like, oh, okay. Okay, I think we're okay now. So to make a long story short, he had heard I was teaching inmates in jail, and that's a whole other story. But when I first started, I started with my clients when I was going through my internship to get my psychology degree. At the same time, I developed and created a program to teach the principals in the jail. Well, he found out about it, and that was one of his dreams, was to take this into prisons. And so he invited me up to some program that he was sponsoring up in Victoria, Canada. And that was it. After that, I got that fabulous connection to Sydney Banks. And that's where it started with him, where he said to me many times, teach what you know, you do you. And of course, if you saw my description, I always wanted to give him credit, but he was adamant with me about, no, this is you. You do you. And that helped me relax. And that helped me be accepting of my humanity and accepting of what little I did know. But he also was very clear about the fact that you don't know. And of course, right away, well, of course I don't know anything, Sid. And what he was saying was, we're just literally getting the fumes of this, just the tail end of everything, meaning, given my understanding at that point, it was, think of a grain of sand on a beach. If I knew that much, I was grateful. Meaning, none of us can really know this, and unless we become enlightened, which that hasn't happened to me yet. But he was very supportive, saying, teach what you do know, meaning teach what you've seen for yourself. Meaning, don't just teach ideas. And that's when I saw what he meant. Oh, because I was teaching ideas, mind, thought, and consciousness. And I would define each one, and I would, and some people would get impacted and they were like, wow, that's really cool. But to be honest with you, I wasn't connected to what I was teaching. And, which was fine too. I mean, I was just doing what which made sense to me. But I stayed open to learning. I stayed open to hearing something new. I stayed open to my mentors. I stayed open to listening, of course, listening to Sid. And over time, that picture of I'm a thinking being and everybody else is a thinking being, and we're all operating the same way, that really started to sink in for me. And it was mostly because I was in so many different environments. And I used to think I had to make adjustments, meaning, I'm going from teaching inmates to teaching business people, engineers and folks like that, and physicists and, really smart people. So I'm thinking, well, it's going to be different. And I asked to just observe how this was taught in the business world. So George Pransky and Dick Bezoin, who was from this company, BAE, they said it was okay if I observed. So I show up to observe, thinking, okay, how do they do this in business? So I was being a student again, okay, what's the deal here? And, unfortunately, they pulled me in. They said, no, we're going to have you run a group, because they split the large group into small groups. And I said, no, I'm new. I don't know yet. So no, you can't do that. And George and Linda Pransky, they said, no, we're putting you in. And I fought tooth and nail, and they said, no, you're going. And so there I am sitting in a group of 8 with 8 men, again, engineers, physicists, financial people. And we're supposed to help, kind of lead a reflective exercise. And as soon as we got into the room and I'm sitting there, they just ignored me and just started talking about business and the projects they were working on. And I'm sitting there like, I knew they shouldn't have put me in here. I don't know what to do. I was literally freaked out, lost, and didn't, kept dreading being there. And so as I sat there, it suddenly hit me. And this is where the first time it hit me. Well, wait a minute. I'm teaching boys in juvenile hall. This is absolutely true. And they do this when I'm teaching them. They're always talking over me, over each other. They're, arguing. They're not sitting down and behaving. I mean, typical, right? And it hit me. Well, I know how to deal with them. I know what the deal is there. Their minds are just all busy. And that's the only problem. So it just occurred to me, well, I can do the same thing here. So I went into this mode of, well, wait a minute. These guys, they're in their heads. They're totally just wound up about work. That's all that's going on. It has nothing to do with me. And so I immediately just went into this other way of seeing people. Now I'm just dealing with states of mind. And of course, I stood up and slammed on the desk, made a loud noise to get their attention, and they're looking at me. And I said, now here's the deal, guys. We're not here to do what you're doing now. We're here to do something else. And I just sort of, took charge. And then we were able to, it was really cute because I told them, I said, now each one of you is going to take your turn to share your name, what's your job, and then something about whatever it is we're supposed to do. And it was cute because after the third one, they started going back to their usual way. And then I'd have to say, no, let's come back. Well, after we finished that whole experience, by the time it was over, I was sitting there like, thank goodness I'm not getting paid to do this. It would have been embarrassing. I mean, I was just feeling so inadequate. Unbeknownst to me, Linda and Dick Bezoin were standing outside the door, and they had been listening to the whole thing. And so when I walked out, I kept thinking, well, I hope they weren't there too long. And so Dick came up to me. He's the guy in the company. And he looked at me, he said, you're hired. And I'm like, hired for what? He said, I need you. I need somebody like you to hit these guys upside the head to get them to settle down and listen. And I was stunned because basically he saw the same thing I did, that we're just dealing with, again, states of mind. We're dealing with people who are just in a certain state of mind, and it's no different than the kids in juvenile hall, the inmates in jail, social workers, probation. Basically, that's all we're dealing with. And that was it. At that point in time, I realized it doesn't matter who we're sharing this understanding. It doesn't matter what the environment. We're all in thought, and to the extent that we know that, that's what changes ourselves inside, but it also changes the world potentially if people just had a little glimpse of this fact. So again, I'm telling you this story because I don't know how many of you are teaching, but again, if you just go in, you just kind of see, you see people, you see what they're talking about. They're in the world of form. They're looking outside at the world and feeling like that's what's creating their experience. If you can universally see, no, that's not true. It's not true for me. It's not true for them. That's where you start. We're all in this together. We're all getting kind of tricked into thinking our experience is coming out from the outside. So that, from that standpoint, when the title, and this is what Sid always said, start where people are and then take them to the principles. All that means is just realize, okay, people are just in their life and they think their life, whatever the issue is, whether it's an individual coming to me because they're unhappy in their marriage, or it's somebody who has drug addiction, or it's somebody who wants to lose weight, whatever the issue, or the group, leadership training, or the nurse managers, the topic was resiliency. Whatever it is, that's what I'm seeing. We're all in thought and we don't know it. Innocently, we don't know it. And so I start where they are, meaning, tell me what meaning you're making of life. Tell me what is it that you see as the problem. And then as quickly as I can, I will help them realize that the problem they see is coming from other people or an organization, or they have so much on their plate in terms of they're in overwhelm because of their jobs, whatever that is, that it's not that's creating whatever is creating for them. It's their relationship to it via these principles. And so that's why I'm able to just navigate into any environment. And again, it's the folks who are in these environments who have helped me see this even deeper, because every now and then I think, well, here's the exception. No, this has nothing to do with the principles. This is just, these people are just screwed up, and that, but then that's an opportunity for me to see that I was getting tricked into believing that. So I've had many opportunities for it to kind of get challenged to, there are times where I don't see it. But I do know underneath everything, ultimately, it is truly, it's just how thought and how mind and how consciousness is manifesting through all of us. And that's allowing us just to be here on the planet. You know, that's what we're talking about. This is just where life comes from. So my knowing of that is what saves me all the time, because there are times when we all lose sight of that. We all lose sight of it. And, you know, I just had a big wedding. Our family just had a huge wedding. And of course, we do know we don't get along with all of our family members. There's always a one, right? And sure enough, there's the one in my family, and I got thrown, you know, I got reactive. And it's been going on for a long time. And I get really frustrated. I'm thinking, look what I'm doing. Look what I do for a living. And yet I'm still getting impacted. You know, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. But I'm okay with that, you know, and I'm open to seeing something new about that. But sometimes we're just in it. So that to me is what this is all about, whether we share this or we don't share it. Because a lot of people, you know, sometimes feel obligated to share this. And I've gotten calls where people say, well, I want to be a coach, or I want to do this and I want to do that. And after a while, I'm fine. I'm kind of really getting curious with them. Well, really, is this really what you want? And they kind of go, well, actually, not really. And I said, well, then why are you saying you want to? Well, I feel like because this has helped me so much, I should be. And this is where we all get thrown, because no, our presence on the planet, our being is enough. Me being Kathy, seeing what I see is enough. I mean, I love to teach, but if somebody said, well, you're never teaching again, well, that's okay too, because I'm here, and anytime I connect to anybody, that's impact some kind of way. So the pressure's off. And also the pressure's off when I am teaching. The pressure's off because, you know, we all know this. See, we just need to wake up to it, this intangible, invisible, whatever you want to call this. We happen to call it the principles, which is a metaphor for how we as human beings are truly, truly operating. So that's kind of my spiel. And I'm sticking to it. And I'm sure I'd love to hear any questions about what I'm saying, because I'd like to make this more relevant for you, because I don't know any of you. So I'd like to hear any thoughts, comments, questions, anything about what I've just said. So I'm going to open it up.
So as a reminder, everyone is muted, but you should be able to unmute yourself. And what I would ask is that you unmute yourself, ask your question, and then remute yourself so that we don't get a lot of background noise.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Yes, who's speaking? I can't tell
Suri.
which.
Suri.
Who?
Suri.
Suri. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi.
There
How
she
are
is.
you?
Okay, there she is. All right.
So I just caught on to the last thing you just said, that people call you and they ask you if they should be teaching and all that, and you said you really want that. So all of a sudden, I think whatever you said after that, I didn't even hear, because I had so much thinking about what you said. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to teach and I want to help people. Like now I can't help people because, oh my gosh, maybe it's not what I'm supposed to do.
Oh.
So I know it's just my thoughts that are whatever. I know where it's coming from, but I want to know, like, how do you differentiate, like, what is really good for you? Like, what's your wisdom that's talking, and what's just the radio in your head?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, let me back up and make it clear what I'm saying. If you want to teach, if you want to share, go for it. I mean, I did. I mean, as soon as I had that first experience, the thing for me, I was really lucky because I was already working with clients, going through so I literally had a whole caseload of clients that I was going to be with the next week. So for me, it was just, I was in it already. So it was so obvious and easy for me. But then, of course, I got inspired to do more than just my clients. In fact, I was sitting in the jail, not as a, not that I was in jail, but I was doing another program in the jail to pay my way through graduate school. And it was doing data collection. Anyway, as I'm sitting there supervising this program, I started overhearing women on the phones really freaking out about their kids. These are women who are locked up, who are freaking out about their kids, getting all emotional, and many of them would come up to me thinking I was a counselor, asking for help, and it suddenly dawned on me, wait a minute, maybe we could teach the principles to them. So for me, I was in those systems already. So it was, and I was in, quote, the helping field. Now, when I said, just because we learn the principles, we don't have to teach. What I meant was, many times, for some reason, we feel like we need to do something, and it's more out of this sense of obligation. And so people, they call me because they're frustrated and nothing's happening, they're not going anywhere. And that's when I just ask them straight up, well, is this what you really want to do? Or the area they're wanting to teach in, the environment, is actually just too far away from what their life is in the moment. What is their world right now? So what I mean is, go for it. Don't worry about that. But there are times when, we're doing something that we're doing because everybody else is doing it. We're doing it because, wow, I want everybody else to feel great. And there's that little attachment there. See, there's that little personal attachment. And that's the only thing you need to see. And I can't tell you how you will see that. See, that's something for you to discover on your own. So when I said that, I didn't mean, well, if you feel like you want to do something that you should immediately, question yourself. I'm just saying there's no rule about that in the big scheme of things. So right. Just stay with what you're doing and don't worry about it. And, just go for it. Like I did. I literally just jumped in and didn't know what I was doing. But what I saw was enough that it kept me like, oh, wait a minute, this is truly real. This is the way it is. And that is what allowed me to do what I'm doing now.
Wow. Thank you.
I hope that clears that up.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, it's funny because when I got introduced to principles right away, I felt like I must tell everyone I know in my entire life, from the day I was born till every single person.
What has to happen first, though, is me. See, and people who go through our trainings, they all want to share with their families. And let me tell you, go for it. But it's kind of like the metaphor I use is if you've smoked cigarettes all your life, and one day you quit, and then you go running around to all the other smokers, they see you coming like, oh, here she comes, with her thing. Just be yourself. Right. And the more you just stay connected to what you know and who you are, then things will occur to you of what to do next. But you don't want to go out on a mission on this.
Right. No, I learned. And then people are like, I had a friend that came over to me like after a year, and she's like, what are you always watching by your lunch break? And I said, nothing, I don't know, videos, whatever. Yeah. Like, I said, if you want, you could listen in. And she came in and full force all the way. And then she's into it. So it's funny. And then even my own mother was like, why you keep going to conferences? So you got it. You understand it. Next, why going again? Yeah. So now, like with time, and they see changes, I guess, in me. And that's usually what happens. Yes. Yeah. People come to you. They notice something about you. So keep doing what you're doing. Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you so much for the webinar. Okay. No problem. I'm seeing all these squares. I feel like we're on Hollywood Squares. I don't know if you know that program. You're in the States. So who else would like to make a comment, ask a question?
Yes, Jane. You need to unmute yourself.
Did I see it?
There you
Okay.
are. There you are.
Kathy, first of all, thank you so much. Appreciate this webinar with us. And I'm wondering how often you listen to the SID materials still, or which of...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'll listen to it and I'll hear nothing, and then the next time it's like you said, where was that?
Well, yeah, that's really interesting. Nobody's ever asked me this before, and I'm so glad you brought this up. There are times when, yes, I do still listen to SID materials, or I'll open the missing link. The missing link to me is the go-to book. And I will connect my clients or groups to Sydney Banks as soon as possible. Okay, so totally, because he is the one that shared this in a way that is so accessible, and I consider him a mystic. So to me, he's had the experience. He's coming back saying, guess what? This is inside you too. So I will always point people in that direction. But what I've noticed, some people use the SID tapes as they get, it's kind of like a coping mechanism. Meaning somebody say, yes, I listen to SID every day. And I'm like, you listen to SID tapes every day? And then I find out, well, why? Well, it helps calm me down. I said, okay, well, that's not what the tapes are for. They're not there to, see, people think the tape is calming them down, when actually we allow ourselves to get calm and then we assign it to the tapes. And everything else, people love to do gardening, and they say, oh, because I relax and I feel good. And they just think, well, it's the gardening that's calming them down. No, we allow ourselves to go into calm because it's in us already, and then we assign it to something, outside of ourselves. So I see people using, Sydney Banks tapes, and other people, other books and teachers and whatever. The way I love Sydney Banks's materials because his, anytime you can hear him speak. Now, I was lucky. I got to hear him up close and personal. And, I would kind of go in, and I'm thinking I'm pretty calm and in the moment, present. And I'll soon realize how profoundly exhausted I am mentally. See, we don't really know how busy we are until we're in the presence of somebody who's like in a whole different space. So for that reason, it amazes me how when you're sitting with somebody who has this knowledge at a very deep level, how it kind of, like, I would literally just, leave my head, so to speak. Now, there are times I'd hear him and everybody's having profound insights, and I'm sitting there thinking, I can't wait to get to my room. I just want to sleep. So other people are having these amazing experiences, and I'm sitting there like, yeah, okay, I need to literally just crash. And then other times I'll be listening to him and I'm sitting there like, wow, and I'll get hit. Okay. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no, there are times you hear something, there are times you don't. That's why when I teach and I have clients, I encourage them to listen to as many teachers as possible. And of course, especially Sydney Banks, because you just can't predict what you're going to hear and what you're not going to hear. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And I used to feel a little guilty, like here, everybody's come from all over the world to hear Sid, and I just want to go to bed. Well, what I realized was, when I was around him, it's like all this stuff that I'm carrying around in my mind, which I don't even realize, just comes off of me. And what's left is I've been profoundly exhausted and not realized it. And he would say that to us. He would speak for an hour and a half, and then say, okay, just go be in, enjoy the weather, enjoy the environment, go shopping, go rest. Don't talk business, just enjoy. Well, because he saw we were just zooming, he saw it. And so I took that to heart, man. When I would crash, that's when I realized, wow, you're more tired than you realized. You're in way more thinking than you realized. And so that's kind of how I see that now. And the times, you know, right now when I hear Sydney Banks speak, every now and then I'll hear something new. Like, even though I've heard him say the same thing over and over again, it's because I'm ready to hear it. But I also miss him when I see him speak. I'm like, oh, I really miss him because he's not here anymore. And I had that moment when I'm, you know, reading or listening to his tapes. So, but don't use it as a way of getting calm. I see people say, well, I'm going to listen to a Sid tape and I will get calm. If you can realize you have calm already, okay? For me, listening or watching Sid, reading Sid, it's a way for me to be reflective, to be open to seeing something new. Not like I need a fix, you know, or I need to feel better. So, and people used to come to my classes. I had a weekly class, and people would say things like, "Oh, Kathy, I always feel great when I come to your class." And I'll say, "Well, what happens the rest of the time?" "Well, you know, it's, you know, life's kind of a drag." I said, "All right, let's look at that. Because it's not me in the class that's making you feel great." So I've had to help people realize that in many different environments. You know, both me as a teacher, I work with inmates in jail. When I come in, they tell me they feel better and they look forward to it. And you can imagine if you're locked up, you know, anything would be, you know, something. But again, helping them realize that place that they go into has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with Sydney Banks. And a friend of mine, she went up to Sydney Banks one time. A group of us, we looked at her and she told us what she was going to ask him. And we looked at her name's Pam, and we said, well, we don't know you. We don't know you anymore. Because she goes right up to Sid and she says to him, why you and not me? You know, why did you have this experience and not me? And he looked at her and he said, I don't know why, because it could have been you easily. And that's why he keeps saying this is inside of all of us. We're all sitting in enlightenment, but for personal thought. See, we're in it already. But it's funny because, you know, we get back into our little crazy, you know, the little hamster mode, and we're off to the races and we just forget. So that's kind of how I see it. And I don't want to discourage you listening to him or reading his works, but try to discern the difference between you're reading for reflection to see something new versus you're reading to be okay. And if you're reading to be okay, that's fine. I'm not saying that's not good, but be curious. Now, what's up with that? What am I missing right now? And who knows? So I'm glad you asked that, because that's a phenomena I've seen. And so that's a great question. Thank you very much. I hope it was helpful. So who would like to go next?
Hello, Kathy.
Hi, Elena.
Hello. I so love hearing the stories you tell. So I would love to ask you to give us a couple more stories. How you start a conversation with people who possibly have never heard about the principles. How do you start from where they are?
Okay, good question. Well, here's an example. Imagine walking into a school. I was asked to teach the principles to kids in a special school, meaning they've been kicked out of regular mainstream schools for various reasons. They've been in and out of the juvenile justice system. So they have what they call continuation schools, where kids who didn't do well in larger schools, they put them in these smaller schools. So the principal of that school there were like 5 separate schools, but he was so impacted by a training he attended that we did. He said, I want you to teach this to the kids in one of my schools. And I'd never really worked with kids. So I'm kind of like, okay, whatever. And I have my colleague, Amy Chen, I was going to call her Mills, but anyway, she and I both go in literally not having a clue of how we were going to do it. So when I first walked into the classroom, and the first thing that happened was the teacher, when he saw me come in, he knew I was coming in. He said, great, they're all yours. And he left. He just flew out of the room. And so I walk in, and these kids were just not sitting in their desks like you would think. They were just all hanging out and doing whatever they wanted to do, and, ignoring me. And there was a teacher's aide in there. And he looked at me kind of waiting for me to do something. But here's what I realized. I sat there and I'm thinking, oh, wow, what am I going to do with this? So first I was just kind of watching the whole thing and thinking, I didn't even know where to start. But what I did know was the state of mind they were in at that point in time. There was no way I was going to stand up in front of the class and say, okay, we're going to talk about mind, thought, and consciousness. See, I knew that was just not going to work. So I just hung out for a while, and it was, literally they were doing whatever. They were not even noticing me until finally about 10 minutes before the end of the class. It was a 50-minute class. A kid comes up to me. He goes, so why are you here? I said, well, I'm here to get to know you guys, and I'm here to, talk about stuff, but that's why I'm here. And he goes, yeah, okay, whatever. And then that was the end of it. So the bell rings. That was the end of my class. So we did, I think, what were we doing that week? I think we did 2 classes a week. So I come in again. The teacher flies out the door, and the teacher's aide sitting there, and the teacher's aide is like, not, you can tell, not happy at all. Kind of like, hey, lady, you better do something. So again, I'm just watching this whole crazy thing happening, and I'm just like really just kind of taken aback. And again, sooner than the last 10 minutes, it was like 20 minutes into it, another kid came, so why are you here? And again, I said, well, I'm here to, talk about stuff and get to know you guys. And of course, he just said, fine, whatever. And they just ignored me. Now, here's what was going on in my mind. I was sitting there waiting for something. I was just waiting within myself. And because the principal trusted in me, there was no pressure, because I had this thought, if the principal walked in right now, he'd probably look at me like, oh, wait a minute, what the heck's going on here? Third class I go in. This is a true story. Third class I go in, and still sitting there, hanging out. They're still being their usual selves. But 10 minutes into the class, a few of them come over. All right, now you've really got to tell us what the deal is here. They were now getting annoyed that I was just sitting there. And I said, no, really, I want to hear what you're interested in. And so these kids, they call the other kids. They go, hey, all right, you got to hear this, guys. And so I said, no, really, I want to hear what you guys are into. And so they said, well, we're into gangs, we're into sex, and we're into drugs. So I wrote them on the little whiteboard, gangs, sex, and drugs. And so I'm like, okay, which should we do first? And they're all like, sex. We want to talk about sex. And I'm like, okay, sex. And I said, so where do we want to start? And they got really quiet. They thought I was going to get on their case. But no, I was genuinely interested in what their take was on sex. But I could tell they were sitting there oh, what do we do now kind of mode. And so I said, well, how many of you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend? And of course they all raised their hand. And so then I said, well, how many of you fall in love and feel so great when you first get together and it's fabulous? And they're like, oh yeah, we know what that is. And so pretty soon I said, now, after a while, do you start having fights, and do you break up? And they go, oh yeah, that happens too. And so I looked at them, I said, well, why do you think that happens? And they kind of look at me like, well, and see, now I have them. Now, again, I had to go to their world. I had to go to their world. What are they into? Sex, drugs, gangs. And it's interesting, next thing you know, we're talking about relationships in the context of principles. And you know, as I took that further and further in, and we did the same thing around gangs, that was all about respect, and that they got respect from being in the gang from the other gang members. And so I said, well, so you think respect comes from outside of you? And so we started talking about how respect is inside them. And then, of course, drugs, that was another fun thing to talk about, because they just want to feel good, and they're tired of being bored. And so what happens is I'll ask them, I said, well, what do you mean you're bored? Well, there's nothing happening, nothing going on. And I'll say, well, do you know what that means when you feel bored? Do you know what that really is? And they're like, well, yeah, nothing's going on. I said, what if I told you it was something else? And that's when I said, well, all boredom really is you're going really fast on the inside, and it's making everything look slow on the outside. And all of a sudden they're like, could you say that again? So this is what I mean. You start where they are, and you take them to the principles. And that can work with any human being in any situation. So that's just one example. And how I worked with them was in real time, meaning as I was hanging out with them, what I saw was states of mind. I mean, and you can imagine, you know, adolescent boys, their states of mind were like, you know, off the chart. And I saw how that the innocence of that I'm off the chart as much as they can be off the chart. So that's what I saw first. And so my approach is to engage that other part of them, that knowing, and they recognize this. One time I showed them a Sydney Banks video. These are kids locked up in juvenile hall. This is another group. And I thought, well, I'm going to give this a shot. Let's see what happens. So I tell them, now I'm going to show you this video. He's got a Scottish accent, but, you know, if you could just, you know, behave yourselves and just try to listen. So I played the tape, and I just only let it go for 20 minutes. I figured 20 minutes was as much as they could hang with. So when I stopped the video, I looked at them and I said, so what did you think? And you know what? They looked at me, and they all kind of said almost together, man, that was deep. Now, the fact that they knew it was deep, to me, means it hit it. They got hit. So again, gave me more certainty. It doesn't matter how people present. It doesn't matter whether they're juvenile hall kids or engineers or physicists and everything in between. We're all in it together. We're all up against our own thinking and not knowing that. So to me, that's what I mean when I say start where they are. So I hope that answered your question. Yeah, it's called learning. I always got thrown into situations, and I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And then I had to rely on that other part of me. Okay, just settle down, Kathy. Something will occur to me on what to do, and that's never let me down. Anybody else? Everybody's so quiet.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Verena here.
Hi, Verena.
What you just, the story you told just reminded me of something that happened today. A friend of mine, she has a difficult relationship with her mom, and they haven't been talking since May, for quite a few months. And she received a letter, like her mom, she finally wrote a letter to her. And I read this letter, and because I'm not involved, as she is in the whole thing, I could really feel how much her mom loves my friend. Like she really.
Oh, the mother wrote the letter too.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, the mom wrote a letter to my friend,
Got it.
and yeah, reading it, I could see, okay, she's in a lot of thoughts, and she has a hard time to express her love to my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend, she said when she read it, she couldn't feel anything. Like she was convinced that her mom was just writing words because they sounded good or something. And I found it so difficult because I really could feel how troubled her mom was, and I could feel the love, but my friend, it was difficult for her. So what?
Yeah.
Talk to that thing?
Yeah. It's interesting when we see that happen. And first, can you think of how there's maybe somebody in your life that you have a lot of thinking about, that you can't get past that? See, everybody has that, but it has more to it when it's in the context of family. Because if you could visually see, we're thinking beings and we're all walking in thought all the time, more than we realize. But when it comes to people who are close to us, family members, take that times 20 of how much thinking we're in. And it could be good, bad, or indifferent. Doesn't matter. We just have a ton of thinking about people the closest to us. I don't know why. That's our humanity. And not all of us, but most of us have a lot. Like as a mom, I have a ton of, I used to have a ton of thought about my son, and thinking, well, I'm a mom and I'm supposed to. Okay. So here you have a mom in a whole bunch of thinking, and then her daughter is in a whole bunch of thinking. So you have two people in states of mind that are in a ton of thought, and they innocently don't know it. And what helps me is to see the innocence in that, meaning when people wake up to it, then right away everything corrects itself, okay? So that's the hopefulness, that potentially one of them could wake up to something and be able to reach across. Now, it sounds like the mother made the attempt, okay? She made the attempt, and the daughter couldn't hear it. So there's, you're on the outside, there's nothing you can do about that, but you can just appreciate it. You don't have to feel bad, meaning you go down, your spirits go down, as much as just appreciate another example of how thoughts in play here, and people just innocently don't see it. And so that's all you can do, unless somebody asks you to intervene. And I've worked with couples where same thing, they're looking at each other, it's because of you, and me appreciating that they're innocently in thought and they don't realize it. They think their experience is coming from the other person. So for what I would say to you is just have compassion, and but the grace of God I go I, meaning I have the same situation at times. And again, that appreciation, it's different than feeling bad. Do you get what I'm saying here? It's and it's staying hopeful. And when you're in that and you're around your friend, maybe at some point she may ask for your advice, or she may ask your take on it. But just be with her, just be with her. If you cannot make much meaning about the fact that that's going on for her, that would have more impact than anything you probably could say. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, very much. Thank you, Kathy. Wonderful.
Yeah. That's why we need to get this out into the world as much as we can, because, imagine, we're here in the States, we have this bizarre political thing going on. It's just horrible. But it's seeing states of mind just making this big brouhaha in the media. And it's there are times I get impacted by it. I get frustrated and annoyed, but then I also then go into an appreciation of, wow, that's all that's going on here, is people are making meaning about stuff and not realizing it. That's all it is. So I can stay more neutral, but I have my moments. My running joke is if Trump becomes president, I'm moving to Ireland, either Ireland or Canada. Anyway, so hang in there with your friend. Anybody else? I hope this has been helpful. What we're talking about here. So we have a few minutes left if somebody wants to ask one more question. Everybody's so quiet. Well, Bonnie, this may be it.
Hi.
Oh, wait, no. Hi,
There's
Bonnie?
Robin as well. Robin, hi.
Oh, hi, Rivka, I just saw you. Hi. I missed, did somebody have a question?
Yes, I do. Robin.
Oh, yes, Robin, go ahead. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I was just trying to figure how to unmute.
Oh, there you go. That sounds like me.
Right. Kathy, this has been great. Thank you. I'm a newbie to this information.
Okay.
Fairly new. Absorbing it and loving it.
Okay.
And obviously, I realize how it impacts me is how I would be best to share it with people. What is your suggestion? Do I just keep absorbing? Do I start sharing? I mean, I am a coach and I'm looking for clients. I don't yet have clients. So
Okay.
I don't sort of want to pounce this on people too as soon as I do have clients, but I'd love to use the insight with it, with anybody that I interact with. What's your suggestions for starting as new to the material?
Well, I'm not sure of the question. So you're asking me, should you start teaching? Is that what you're asking?
No, well, yes and no. I'm just trying to figure what the heck to do with this.
Oh, okay.
I would love to share it. I was a teacher. Teaching is something natural for me.
Okay,
Right now,
okay.
I'm sort of in limbo, not
Yeah.
working. So it's kind of,
Okay.
it feels like a wonderful opportunity to do something with great information.
Well, okay. This is what I say to people who are in kind of where you're at.
Okay.
If you really want to share, and the thing that I realize, the more I share, the more I learn, because I get to hit areas where I'm like, well, I don't know I don't know that,
Right.
or somebody would ask a question. I'm like, I don't know that either. And it helps us, it starts our learning curve even more. I would just volunteer, do a pilot group somewhere. What world are you in right now? You said you used to be a teacher. Volunteer in a school setting, volunteer in your community. To me, I had a friend, she was teaching this in the jail system, and her daughter was going to school. She was in junior high school, and the daughter came home really upset because she was being bullied by another kid. And so she came up with this idea. She volunteered. She went to the principal and said, I would like to do classes on bullying. And they said, sure. And boom, then now she's teaching the kids about bullying, in the context of bullying. So yeah, that's what I tell people, look around you in your community or areas you're interested in. And when I say volunteer, just say, listen, I'd like to volunteer and do if people are kind of nervous, well, a pilot group, meaning it's a one-shot deal. Because inevitably, I started with one program in the jail, and pretty soon they had me, doing all kinds of classes because word of mouth. So start where you are. And just go from there, because if you really want to do this work, the more you do it, the more you learn. The more you do it, the more you learn. And there are many mentors in our community That's all I do right now is mentor people on how to teach this. That seems to be 98% of my practice, as well as a lot of training programs that I'm doing over in Europe. So, you know, my vision is to grow more teachers.
Okay.
Really, really grow more teachers. And so go for it.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you
yeah,
so
yeah,
much.
yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
we are at the top of the hour. Kathy, I can't thank you enough. And
My pleasure.
I have to say, you know, I've been in the technology field since 1981, and I think this might be one of the best uses of technology that I've been involved with, because here we are having a global interactive conversation. We have people from Russia, Brazil, the UK. I believe I saw Kay from Scotland on.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So, and everywhere in between. I'm in Southern California, you're in Northern California.
Yeah.
This is fabulous to be able to do this interactively and really talk about this understanding. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for joining us. And the next webinar is August 23rd, same time with Barbara Patterson. That's going to be...
Oh, Barbara, she's fabulous. Yeah, she's great.
And yeah, I know. I love Barb. And I also want to remind everybody that the conference is coming up, the 3PGC conference. It's October 27th through the 30th in the Los Angeles area. And I hope to see everyone there. Kathy, do you want to say anything about the conferences?
Only that I'll be there, and I'm the Q&A person again, so you'll get to see me pre-conference mornings. That seems to be my thing. And yeah, please, if you can go. It's an opportunity to hear many different people share. And again, that's another way to get more reflective and hear how other people are seeing this. And that's what I did. I just listened to as many teachers as possible. And I was lucky because I happen to be around some pretty amazing teachers. So go for it. If you can get there, take the opportunity, because what we're speaking about is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
You really can't put a dollar figure on this. And so I didn't have a whole lot of money when I was first starting out. And I scraped and scrimped and did whatever I could, because it really, really, I think this is potentially could change the world. So if you can go, I highly recommend it. And it's been an honor to be the first Zoom speaker. And it's been an honor sharing whatever I know to all of you. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
All righty. So bye.